Hello, my friend. Tonight we're traveling deep into the rainforest. Not the one on Google Maps, but the one that hides pyramids under vines, cities swallowed by roots, and calendars more precise than your smartphone. Yes, we're going to meet the Maya. Now, I have to warn you, you wouldn't last 5 minutes in the Maya world. No air conditioning, no coffee. You'd probably be sacrificed just for looking confused during a solar eclipse. But don't worry, I'll be your guide. And we'll move slowly like a stone being carved, like a jaguar stalking dusk. We'll walk through temples, trace stars, listen to droughts, and wonder why such a brilliant civilization seemed to vanish almost overnight. So before you get too cozy, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy what I do here. And if you're feeling extra generous, drop a sleepy comment below. Now, turn off the lights, lower the AC just a little, pull the blanket up to your chin, and let's begin tonight's gentle journey together. Let's go! Section 1. The Rise of the Maya. Imagine you're waking up in a land draped in thick emerald jungles, the air warm alive with the sounds of distant birds and rustling leaves. This is the world of the ancient Maya, beginning to take shape around 250 CE in the region we now call southern Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. The Maya weren't just scattered tribes. They were slowly weaving themselves into one of the most fascinating civilizations of the ancient world. You might picture humble villages at first where people farmed maize beans and squashed their everyday bread and butter. Over centuries, these small communities grew connected by trade routes and shared ideas. They began to build towering stone cities with impressive pyramids piercing the sky, plazas filled with markets and temples and ball courts, echoing the cheers of ancient games. It's amazing to think how these people surrounded by dense forests and wild animals managed to thrive. You'd have to be resourceful, patient, and deeply connected to the rhythms of nature, understanding the seasons, the stars, and the land itself. Their rise was slow but deliberate, marked by innovation in farming techniques like raised fields and terracing that tamed the jungle's wildness. But what really sets the Maya apart is their early mastery of writing and astronomy, which we'll explore soon. For now, picture yourself walking through a bustling Maya village, hearing the chatter of traders, the pounding of artisans, shaping stone and clay, and the soft prayers whispered to the gods. As you imagine this awakening of a civilization, keep in mind how fragile it all can be, how even the greatest empires must face the tides of change. Imagine the sun rising gently over the thick canopy of the Maya jungle. The air is still cool, but the day promises warmth and life. You step out from a small thatched hut into a world teeming with vibrant greens and the soft hum of nature. Around you, people begin their daily routines, the scent of fresh maize bread mingling with the earthy aroma of wet soil. In these early days of the Maya civilization, roughly around 250 CE small villages were scattered throughout the lowlands of present-day southern Mexico and northern Central America. Life here was tied closely to the land. Farming was not just a means to survive, it was a sacred act, one that required deep respect for the earth and its cycles. Maize was considered a gift from the gods, and growing it well meant the difference between feast and famine. Over time, these small communities began to grow and connect, weaving a network of trade routes that linked villages to burgeoning cities. Imagine caravans laden with jade obsidian blades, vibrant feathers, and salt winding their way through dense forests and across rivers. These goods were more than mere commodities. They were symbols of power and status tools of diplomacy and spirituality. As the population grew, so did the ambition of the Maya people. They began constructing impressive stone cities that seemed to climb toward the heavens. Picture grand pyramids towering above the treetops, their steps worn smooth by generations of pilgrims. Nearby open plazas echoed with the laughter of children and the solemn chants of priests performing ancient rituals. The Maya ball game, a mix of sports ceremony and politics, was played in massive courts, the bounce of rubber balls punctuating the tense silence. One cannot help but marvel at their ingenuity. Building such cities in the heart of a jungle was no small feat. The Maya engineers carved terraces into hillsides to create farmland, built reservoirs to capture the scarce rainwater, and developed an intricate calendar system to guide planting and harvesting. Yet, even amid this growth, life was fragile. The dense jungle was both a protector and a challenge, a place where disease, predators, and natural disasters lurked. The Maya had to constantly adapt, learning to live in harmony with their environment, balancing reverence with survival. And through it all, a thread of mystery weaves through their story. How did these ancient people come to possess such knowledge? How did they organize their society, their religion, their economy? And what would become of this rising civilization, standing tall in the jungle, reaching for the stars? Tonight, as you listen, allow yourself to drift into this world. Imagine the sounds, the sights, the smells of a time long past but never forgotten. The story of the Maya's rise is not just about stone and soil, it's about human spirit curiosity and the quest for meaning in a vast, wild world. Beyond the cities and fields, the Maya society blossomed into a rich tapestry of culture and tradition. You might find yourself wandering through a bustling market where traders offer exotic goods, like brightly colored feathers, intricately carved jade pendants, and pottery painted with vibrant scenes of daily life and myth. The air is filled with a mix of aromas, freshly ground cacao beans, ready to be made into a rich, bitter drink, spicy peppers drying in the sun, and the faint smoke from cooking fires. At the heart of Maya life stood the family and community with strong bonds that tied individuals to their land and to each other. Imagine the gentle hum of songs sung during the evening stories passed down by elders about the origins of the world, the gods who shaped the stars, and heroes who walked the earth long ago. These stories were not just entertainment, they were lessons, a way to understand existence and your place within it. Education was a privilege for some, especially the children of nobles and priests. These young ones learned to read and write the complex hieroglyphs carved into stone and painted on pottery. The Maya script was one of the most sophisticated writing systems of the ancient world, combining symbols that represented sounds, words, and ideas. Through these glyphs, they recorded their history, science, and mythology, a legacy that still intrigues scholars today. Religion permeated every aspect of life. The Maya believed the universe was a complex web of relationships between gods, humans, and nature. They worshipped many deities, each representing natural forces like rain, sun, corn, and death. Rituals were performed to honor these gods, often involving elaborate ceremonies in grand temples with incense smoke curling upward, drumming rhythms vibrating through stone plazas, and offerings made to ensure balance and prosperity. Kings and priests held great power, seen as intermediaries between the mortal and divine realms. The ruler was often considered semi-divine, responsible for maintaining cosmic order. Imagine a grand ceremony where the king dons magnificent feathered headdresses and jade jewelry, presiding over a ritual that both awes and humbles the crowd. The Maya believed that through such acts, their world would continue in harmony. And yet, beneath this vibrant surface, life was not always peaceful. Archaeological evidence hints at increasing social complexity and competition among city-states rivalries that would one day contribute to their decline. But for now, as you stroll through this ancient world, there is a sense of awe and wonder at human creativity thriving in the depths of the jungle. So close your eyes and picture this, a civilization rising slowly but surely, rooted in nature, steeped in knowledge and ritual, reaching toward the sky with temples and stars. This is the Maya, an ancient world filled with beauty and mystery, inviting you to explore its secrets night by night. Section 2. The Cities in the Jungle. Close your eyes and imagine walking deeper into the jungle. The thick canopy filters the sunlight into a soft green glow. As you move through the tangled vines and towering trees, suddenly the forest opens up before you, revealing stone structures rising out of the greenery like ancient giants waking from a long sleep. These are the cities of the Maya, built with careful precision and purpose between 300 and 900 CE. Unlike the crowded metropolises you know today, these urban centers were intertwined with the jungle itself. Nature and architecture blended seamlessly with temples and palaces covered in vines and plazas, shaded by ancient ceiba trees, trees sacred to the Maya and believed to connect the heavens, earth, and underworld. One of the most famous cities you might visit is Tikal, located in present-day Guatemala. Picture grand pyramids towering over the jungle canopy, their steep steps worn smooth by centuries of pilgrims climbing to offer prayers to the gods. The Great Plaza buzzed with activity during festivals, merchants trading goods, musicians playing flutes and drums, priests conducting ceremonies, and nobles watching from their stone thrones. Another city, Palenque, hidden in the lush Chiapas region of Mexico, offers a quieter, almost mysterious atmosphere. Here you'd find intricate carvings and inscriptions telling stories of rulers' battles and divine ancestry. Imagine walking through a palace adorned with sculpted reliefs and murals that glow softly under the filtered sunlight. Unlike some ancient cities built in open plains, Maya cities had to be smartly adapted to the rainforest environment. The Maya created reservoirs to collect rainwater, ensuring a steady supply during dry seasons. They terraced hillsides to grow crops and built causeways, raised roads that connected city centers, and facilitated trade and communication. Walking through these ancient streets, you'd notice the ball courts, long, narrow fields where the sacred ball game was played. This wasn't just a sport. It was a ritual with deep religious and political significance. The bounce of the rubber ball echoed off stone walls as players, wearing protective gear, competed to keep the ball in play without using their hands. Sometimes the stakes were high, including the fate of kings and city-states. Despite their grandeur, Maya cities were not densely packed. Their population density was relatively low compared to ancient cities elsewhere, with large areas left for farming and forest. This blending of urban and rural life created a unique rhythm, a harmony between human activity and the natural world. But these cities, magnificent as they were not immune to challenges. Over time, growing populations strained resources. Deforestation and soil depletion began to take their toll. Political rivalries between city-states sometimes erupted into warfare, weakening the fabric of Maya society. Yet, as you wander these ruins today, you can't help but feel the pulse of a civilization that reached incredible heights, rooted deeply in its environment and culture. Their cities stand as silent storytellers, whispering tales of human ambition, faith, and resilience. So as you drift off tonight, imagine walking those ancient streets, hearing the distant laughter of children, the solemn prayers of priests, and the distant beat of drums, calling the community together. The Maya cities in the jungle are more than ruins. They are a gateway to understanding one of history's most captivating civilizations. As you continue your stroll through these ancient cities, notice the way the Maya used their surroundings with a kind of quiet genius. Instead of cutting down every tree and flattening the land, they incorporated nature into their urban design. Sacred cenotes, natural sinkholes filled with crystal-clear water, were not just sources of life, but also gateways to the underworld, where the Maya believed their gods dwelled. Imagine how these deep, mysterious pools shimmered in the sunlight, surrounded by thick foliage, inspiring awe and reverence. Many of the buildings you see were adorned with elaborate stucco masks, painted murals, and carved stone glyphs. These decorations weren't just beautiful. They told stories of powerful kings, legendary battles, and divine interventions. Walking through these plazas, you might glimpse the remnants of these narratives, like echoes of voices from centuries past. Life in these cities was complex and vibrant. Markets would burst with color and sound as traders sold everything from cacao beans used as currency to finely woven textiles dyed with vibrant blues and reds. The scent of burning copal incense filled the air, rising in thin spirals from temple altars. Women and men, dressed in embroidered garments, moved gracefully through the streets. Children played nearby, and artisans worked diligently, carving jade or shaping pottery. Despite this lively atmosphere, the cities were not isolated fortresses. They were connected by vast networks of roads and causeways that stretched for miles, weaving the Maya world together. These routes allowed for the exchange of goods, ideas, and even marriages between city-states, creating a dynamic and interconnected civilization. But with greatness comes fragility. The Maya depended heavily on their environment's delicate balance. The jungle could be both a protector and a threat. Floods, droughts, and storms tested the resilience of these cities. Archaeological evidence reveals that over time the pressure on natural resources increased. Trees were cut down faster than they could regrow, soil quality declined, and water sources became scarce during dry seasons. You might wonder, as you walk among the silent stones, how these cities once so full of life could fall into ruin. What invisible forces shifted to unravel this intricate world? Was it war, environmental change, or something else entirely? As you gently close your eyes, let your mind wander among these towering pyramids and shaded plazas. Feel the humidity of the jungle air, hear the distant call of a howler monkey, and sense the pulse of a civilization that dared to touch the heavens with stone and spirit. The Maya cities are more than archaeological sites. They are whispers of humanity's eternal dance with nature, power, and mystery. Section 3. Maya. Writing and Glyphs. Imagine yourself sitting quietly in a shaded corner of an ancient Maya city, surrounded by stone monuments and painted ceramics. Before you lies a tablet covered in strange, beautiful symbols, the Maya glyphs. These intricate carvings are not just decorations. They are the keys to a forgotten language, a secret code that holds the stories, science, and soul of the Maya people. Maya writing is one of the most sophisticated writing systems ever created by an ancient civilization. It's a complex combination of logogram symbols representing words and syllabic signs, symbols representing sounds. Each glyph can tell a story or convey a concept, making the script rich and expressive. Imagine how much patience and skill it took to master the script, to carve delicate symbols into stone or paint them on fragile pottery. This writing wasn't for everyday chit-chat. It was a sacred tool reserved mainly for the elite kings, priests, and scribes. They recorded royal lineages, historical events, astronomical calculations, and religious texts. Imagine a scribe working meticulously in a quiet room, carefully painting each glyph on a long folded bark paper book called a codex. Sadly, most of these codices were destroyed over time, but a few have survived, giving us precious glimpses into Maya thought. One of the most fascinating things about Maya glyphs is how they encode time. The Maya developed complex calendar systems, combining the famous long count calendar with the Tzolk'in and Hab cycles. Imagine a calendar carved on stone, tracking not just days and years, but cosmic cycles, believed to influence everything from crop growth to human destiny. By deciphering these glyphs, modern researchers have uncovered stories of mighty kings like Pakal the Great, who ruled Palenque in the 7th century. His tomb, hidden deep beneath a pyramid, was discovered with a carved sarcophagus lid covered in glyphs that tell a story of divine ancestry and the journey to the underworld. Picture the awe of archaeologists uncovering this masterpiece, slowly unlocking secrets that lay buried for centuries. But the writing wasn't only about power and royalty. It was also used to record myths, rituals, and even everyday life. Pottery shards have revealed inscriptions describing everything from ball games to the names of gods and animals. These fragments offer a window into a world where words danced between the sacred and the mundane. As you listen, imagine yourself tracing these glyphs with your fingers, feeling the grooves worn by time, connecting with voices from long ago. The Maya script is a bridge across centuries, inviting you to explore a civilization that valued knowledge, history, and the power of the written word. And as your mind drifts among these symbols, you might wonder how much of their wisdom remains hidden, waiting patiently to be rediscovered. Delving deeper, picture the painstaking process a Maya scribe would undertake to create these inscriptions. Unlike the hurried scribbles we might imagine today, each glyph was carefully crafted with precision and meaning. Scribes used fine brushes made from animal hair to paint vivid glyphs on bark paper codices, ceramics, and even walls inside temples. Others carved these signs into hard limestone monuments with obsidian tools, their sharp edges cutting slowly but deliberately into stone. These glyphs served as a language of power and memory, a way to immortalize the deeds of kings and gods alike. Imagine a royal court where the ruler's story was read aloud from carved stelae, the crowd listening intently as histories unfolded through a language as intricate as the jungle around them. Each glyph carried layers of meaning, sometimes representing sounds, sometimes whole words, and sometimes abstract ideas like the concept of life or death. The rediscovery and decipherment of Maya writing is a fascinating tale of its own. For centuries after the Spanish conquest, the meaning of the glyphs was dismissed as mere decoration or hieroglyphic nonsense. It wasn't until the 20th century that scholars began to crack the code using breakthroughs in linguistics and comparisons to modern Maya languages. Imagine the thrill of piecing together this ancient puzzle letter symbol by symbol, bringing voices long silent back to life. Thanks to their work, we now understand that Maya glyphs tell stories of love and war, of alliances and betrayals, of celestial movements and earthly rituals. They reveal that the Maya were not just observers of the sky, but careful mathematicians and astronomers calculating eclipses and tracking Venus with astonishing accuracy. Their understanding of time was deeply spiritual. The famous long count calendar, starting in 3114 BCE, allowed them to mark dates far into the past and future. Imagine a calendar stone inscribed with glyphs that count not just days but cycles of creation and destruction, weaving a cosmic tapestry where human life was but a thread. Through these writings we also glimpse the importance of sacrifice and renewal. The glyphs often describe ceremonies where kings would offer blood to the gods, believed necessary to sustain the world's balance. Such rituals were not acts of cruelty, but profound expressions of faith, binding the human and divine worlds. As you drift in this quiet moment, consider the elegance of a system that captured so much the passage of time, the cycles of nature, the struggles of kings and the whispers of gods, all within beautifully carved signs. The Maya script invites you to imagine a world where language was art, history was sacred, and every symbol a story waiting to be told. And so, as your eyes grow heavy and your mind drifts toward dreams, hold on to the mystery of these glyphs, silent witnesses to a civilization's soul patiently waiting for you to listen. Section 4. Maya Astronomy and Calendars. Close your eyes and picture yourself lying on soft jungle grass, the warm air humming gently around you. Above, the vast night sky stretches endlessly, scattered with glittering stars and mysterious planets. To the ancient Maya, this sky was not just a backdrop. It was a living, breathing map of time, fate, and divine order. Maya astronomy was one of the most advanced in the ancient world. They didn't just watch the stars casually. They observed with a dedication that spanned generations, carefully tracking the movements of the sun, moon, planets, and stars. Imagine the patience it took to notice patterns that repeat over years, even decades, and to record those rhythms with such precision that their calendars still fascinate astronomers today. At the heart of their cosmic observations was the sacred city of Uxmal, where the pyramid of the magician stands tall, its unique, rounded shape aligning perfectly with the setting sun during the solstice. Imagine standing there at dawn, feeling the sun's first light touch the ancient stones, just as the Maya intended a testament to their deep understanding of celestial cycles. The Maya developed several calendars, each with its own purpose, woven together like threads in a cosmic tapestry. The Tzolk'in calendar was a 260-day cycle used mainly for religious ceremonies and divination. Picture priests consulting this calendar to determine auspicious days for planting crops, holding rituals, or embarking on journeys. Alongside the Tzolk'in was the Hab calendar, a solar calendar of 365 days, divided into 18 months of 20 days, plus a short 5-day period called Wayeb, considered unlucky and dangerous. Imagine the tension and care with which the Maya navigated these days, avoiding major activities until the cycle reset. Perhaps the most famous is the long count calendar, which counts the days from a mythological starting point in 3114 BCE. This calendar allowed the Maya to record dates far into the past and future. Imagine a carved stone stela marking a ruler's birth, or a great battle with an inscription showing the exact day in this intricate system. What makes Maya astronomy even more remarkable is how closely it tied to their mythology and worldview. The movements of Venus, for instance, were carefully tracked and associated with war and sacrifice. Imagine priests observing the bright morning star, rising, interpreting it as a celestial message that might predict conflict or divine favor. Maya temples themselves were designed as astronomical observatories. The famous Caracol at Chichen Itza has windows and doors aligned to capture the sun's rays during solstices and equinoxes. Imagine standing inside, watching the light shift across stone, as if the building itself was alive and breathing with the cycles of the cosmos. This deep connection between astronomy and daily life created a rhythm that shaped everything from farming to governance, from religion to art. The sky was a clock, a calendar, and a sacred script all at once, guiding the Maya through the cycles of birth, death, and renewal. As you listen now, imagine lying back under that ancient sky, feeling the slow, steady pulse of the universe around you. The stars whisper secrets of time's endless dance, inviting you to dream alongside a civilization that looked upward, not just for navigation, but for meaning. Beyond just marking time, the Mayas' celestial observations shaped their understanding of the universe's very nature. They believed the cosmos was divided into three realms: the heavens, above the earthly world where we live, and the underworld below. The stars were more than lights in the sky. They were the ancestors, gods, and spirits watching over the living. Take the Milky Way, for example. To the Maya, it was not just a band of stars, but a celestial road, a path connecting the heavens and the underworld. Imagine the quiet awe of a Maya observer on a clear night, tracing that luminous river across the sky, feeling connected to a grand cosmic journey. It was a reminder that life was part of a larger cycle, one that included birth, death, and rebirth. The Maya also placed great importance on eclipses, which they viewed as powerful and often ominous events. Priests meticulously predicted these solar and lunar eclipses using their sophisticated calendars. Imagine the tension in a city as day suddenly darkened during a solar eclipse, a moment when the sun seemed to disappear, challenging the order of the world. Rituals were performed to restore balance, reflecting the deep interplay between astronomy, religion, and human fate. Their knowledge extended beyond the sun and moon to the planets, particularly Venus. The Maya tracked Venus's cycles with incredible precision, associating the planet with the god Kukulkan, the feathered serpent. Venus's appearances as the morning and evening star were carefully noted, believed to influence events such as warfare and crop cycles. Imagine the priestly scholars watching the planet's movements night after night, interpreting these celestial signals as messages from the divine. What's even more astounding is how Maya rulers use this astronomical knowledge to legitimize their power. Kings often claimed divine ancestry linked to celestial beings, reinforcing their authority through cosmic connections. For example, rulers timed important events, such as coronations or military campaigns, to coincide with favorable celestial alignments. Imagine the excitement and solemnity as the king ascended the throne under a carefully chosen constellation, the heavens themselves endorsing his reign. The architecture of Maya cities reflects this cosmic consciousness. Temples and pyramids weren't randomly placed, but aligned to astronomical events like solstices and equinoxes. At the famous El Castillo Pyramid in Chichen Itza, during the spring and autumn equinoxes, the setting sun casts a shadow that looks like a serpent slithering down the staircase, an awe-inspiring sight that connected earth to sky and myth to reality. All of this tells us that for the Maya, astronomy was not a separate science, but a way of life, a lens through which they understood time, history, and their place in the universe. It shaped their calendar, their rituals, their politics, and their art. Every stone carved, every glyph painted, was a reflection of the cosmos itself. So as you lie back tonight, let the thought linger that you are part of an ancient story, one where people looked up at the stars with wonder and curiosity, seeking to understand the mysteries above and find their own place within the grand design of time. Section 5. Maya, Religion, and Mythology. Let's begin with the gods. To the Maya, gods weren't distant or abstract. They were present in the rivers and storms and crops and stars, in your own heartbeat. The Maya pantheon was vast, full of deities that could be kind or cruel, beautiful or terrifying. Some had human faces, others had jaguar claws, skeletal jaws, or twisting serpentine bodies. They governed everything from maize to rain, from writing to war. Picture Chak, the god of rain. He's often shown with curling eyebrows, a long nose, and wielding a lightning axe. When Chak struck the clouds, it thundered and rained, a divine act crucial to Maya agriculture. Without Chak, the maize would not grow. Without maize, the people would not live. Then there's Itzamna, the sky god and creator deity, often seen as an old wise man. And this Chel goddess of fertility, weaving, and medicine, a powerful, complex figure with both nurturing and destructive aspects. Imagine temples where these gods were honored with incense music, blood offerings, and dance sacred performances connecting the human with the divine. But Maya mythology goes even deeper. At the heart of their spiritual world is the Popol Vuh, the sacred book of the Quiche Maya. Think of it as a blend of Genesis Gilgamesh and a good dose of epic adventure. It tells of the creation of the world, not once but multiple times. The gods tried different versions of humanity, first from mud, too soft, then from wood, too hollow, and finally, they got it right, people made of maize. Yes, maize corn, the very essence of life for the Maya. In their eyes, you weren't just eating maize, you were made of it. You were literally a child of the earth, created from the same golden grains that fed your village. Imagine the spiritual connection in every meal, not just sustenance, but a sacrament. But the Popol Vuh isn't just about creation. It follows the heroic twin gods Hunahpu and Xbalanque, who journey through Xibalba, the Maya underworld, a dark, dangerous place filled with trickster gods, trials, and deathly traps. The twins outwit the lords of death, rise from the underworld, and become the sun and moon. It's a powerful tale of resilience, rebirth, and cosmic balance. Imagine the stories being told by flickering firelight, a grandparent's voice guiding the next generation into a world of gods and heroes. The line between history and myth blurred, after all Maya kings often claimed descent from these very gods. By honoring myth, they were honoring their own bloodline. The sacred geography of the Maya world mirrored their beliefs. Mountains were seen as the homes of gods, caves as entrances to Xibalba. Certain cenotes, natural sinkholes filled with clear, still water, were considered portals to the underworld. Archaeologists have discovered offerings at the bottom of these sacred wells, jade pottery, and sometimes even human bones. Imagine peering down into one of these cenotes, sunlight filtering through the jungle canopy, above the water below, still and silent, hiding centuries of prayers and sacrifice beneath its surface. Sacrifice, yes, it was an essential part of Maya religion, and while it may seem grim to us, it was a deeply spiritual act for them. Human blood was seen as the ultimate gift to the gods, a life-for-life exchange to maintain cosmic order. But this wasn't indiscriminate violence. Rituals were carefully timed, highly symbolic, and often involved self-sacrifice by kings or nobles who offered their own blood in elaborate ceremonies. Now that might sound intense, but in their worldview, this was the highest form of honor, to give a piece of yourself to keep the world turning. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine the soft echo of a drum in a jungle temple, the flicker of torchlight on stone, and priests chanting in a language older than memory. The gods of the Maya are still with us, carved in stone, whispered in stories, and waiting in the stillness between dreams. Let's not forget how deeply ritual was embedded in everyday life. Religion wasn't just reserved for grand temples or elite priests. It was in the planting of corn, the naming of children, the start of a journey, and even the grinding of maize for the morning meal. Every action, no matter how small, was linked to cycles of nature and the favor of the gods. Each household had its own sacred space, a tiny altar in the corner, a few offerings of food or incense, a small figurine of a household deity or ancestor. Families would gather to honor their ancestors, believing their spirits lingered nearby, watching over them. Imagine lighting a little fire, offering a bowl of tamales, and whispering a quiet prayer to your grandmother who passed away 20 years ago. She's still with you, and your offering helps her spirit flourish in the afterlife. Time itself was sacred. As we saw with the Maya calendar, each day had a unique spiritual meaning. You weren't just born on a random Tuesday. No, you were born under the day sign of Khan, ruled by the sun, destined for warmth and abundance. Or maybe under Akbal, a symbol of darkness and mystery. Imagine your personality, your future, even your relationships shaped by the energies of the cosmos on the day you entered the world. Priests played a crucial role in managing all this spiritual energy. These weren't just religious figures. They were astronomers, doctors, historians, poets, and advisors to kings. They knew which days were auspicious, how to interpret omens, and which offerings would please which gods. In Maya society, being a priest was both a responsibility and a privilege, a life of training, observation, and sacrifice. And speaking of sacrifice again, while human offerings often capture our modern imagination, much of Maya ritual life revolved around more symbolic gestures, burning incense, offering flowers, spilling a few drops of blood from the tongue or earlobe. The idea wasn't cruelty, it was balance. To receive one must give, to ask one must offer. Imagine a priest kneeling before a fire, slicing his palm, with a sharp stingray spine letting a few drops fall onto burning copal resin smoke swirling upwards like a message to the gods. Their myths reflected this same balance between light and dark, creation and destruction, life and death. The Maya didn't shy away from the darkness. In fact, they embraced it. The underworld, Xibalba, wasn't just a place of fear. It was necessary. The sun passed through it each night. Maize grew from its soil. Even the gods had to descend into darkness to rise again. And that, perhaps, is the most beautiful part of Maya spirituality, its cyclical nature. There is no final end, only transitions. Death isn't a door closing, but a path bending. You leave one life and begin another as a plant, a spirit, a star. The universe spins on endlessly weaving its sacred web. So now, as you lie under your blanket, perhaps you can feel it too, that ancient rhythm, the beat of the sacred drum, the rustle of maize stalks in the wind, the twin gods leaping through shadows, the rain god's laughter in a summer storm. The Maya world was never silent. It was alive, speaking through stone, fire, blood, and dream. Section 6. Daily Life in a Maya City. Let's forget the gods for a while and step into something a bit more ordinary. But of course, in the world of the ancient Maya, even the ordinary is extraordinary. You're waking up, but not in your cozy bed. You're in a palm-thatched house, the walls made of mud and cane. The floor is smooth packed earth. The sun is just rising over the jungle canopy, golden light pouring through the open doorway. A smoky aroma of corn and wood fills the air. The sound of birds, parrots, toucans, howler monkeys welcomes the morning. You stretch and sit up. It's already warm. You're living in a Maya city, sometime around the 8th century CE. Maybe Copan, maybe Tikal, or Yachilan. All are buzzing centers of art trade and spiritual life. And today, you're just you, a regular person. Not a king or priest, not a warrior or scribe. Just a Maya citizen. Your family is already awake. Your mother is grinding maize on a stone matete, rhythmically turning the corn into masa. Your younger brother is helping carry water from the nearby cenote. Your father's outside sharpening tools. Breakfast is simple, but sacred tamales, maybe a bit of chili, some cacao if you're lucky. The cacao is bitter rich and spicy, not sweet like modern chocolate. You sip it slowly, feeling the warmth spread. Then it's time for work. If you're a man, you might head off to the fields. The Maya practice milpa agriculture, slash and burn, carefully rotating crops. You walk through the jungle to a patch of land where corn beans and squash grow together, the three sisters. It's back-breaking hot work, but it's vital. These crops feed your entire household. If you're a woman, maybe your day is spent weaving. Maya textiles were colorful, symbolic, and immensely valued. You sit on a low stool with a backstrap loom, fingers flying as you create patterns inspired by gods, animals, and dreams. Maybe you're also in charge of preparing meals, tending to a small garden, or taking care of the children. If you're a child, you might be helping your parents or learning your role through play. Boys might pretend to hunt with small slings, while girls imitate their mothers, grinding maize or weaving. You listen to stories passed down from your elders, myths, history, and warnings about misbehaving or wandering into sacred caves uninvited. And speaking of stories, maybe your uncle is a scribe. Not everyone is literate, but scribes are essential in Maya society. They record dynasties, rituals, astronomy, and myths in beautifully painted codices, books made of bark paper, and carved stone stelae with glyphs. If you're lucky, your uncle shows you how to paint a god with black jaguar spots, or how to write your birth date in sacred numerals. You're in awe. Back in the city center, life hums like a beehive. The plaza is full of life merchants from distant lands offering obsidian blades, turquoise jade cotton, and salt. You hear different dialects, see people with elaborate feathered headdresses, and skin painted red with achiote. The air smells of spice sweat and incense. There's also music, always music, flutes, drums, shell trumpets. Musicians play during markets, during rituals, even in the ball court. Ah yes, the ball court. The Maya ball game was more than sport. It was ritual theater politics, and at times, deadly. Two teams tried to get a heavy rubber ball through a stone hoop using only their hips, elbows, and knees. It was fast, graceful, and dangerous. The game echoed the myth of the hero twins, and sometimes, though not always, ended in sacrifice. Don't worry, today's match is for entertainment. You sit with your friends under the hot sun, cheering and laughing, enjoying tamales wrapped in banana leaves. One player performs a stunning dive and sends the ball sailing through the ring. The crowd erupts. Later, you walk through the sacred parts of the city. Great temples rise above the jungle, their stairways steep and symmetrical. You pass priests chanting, nobles in feathered cloaks, and elders praying at altars. Maybe it's a festival day. There's a ceremony. The smell of copal incense is strong in the air. You feel it sting your eyes as the smoke rises skyward. At sunset, you return home. Your muscles ache. Your skin smells of sweat and earth. You sit outside with your family. Fireflies flicker in the trees. Crickets begin their nightly symphony. You sip warm cacao again, this time mixed with honey. Someone starts telling a story, maybe about the sun god or a time when animals spoke. You feel safe, warm, and small beneath the enormous sky. And as the stars come out, Venus first, then the full, glittering sweep of the Milky Way, you lie back and think about everything. The gods, the stories. The ball game, the market. You're not just living in a city. You're part of a universe. One where your actions echo the movements of the stars. One where every tamale, every song, every sunset means something. You close your eyes. You are home. Section 7. Food and cuisine in the Maya world. Let's turn our attention to something a bit tastier. Well, at least tastier in theory. You're about to explore the culinary world of the ancient Maya. Now, don't expect silverware or glass cups. Don't even expect bread. But what you will find is a cuisine that was deeply spiritual, surprisingly sophisticated, and dare I say delicious. So let's step back into your Maya city around the 7th or 8th century CE. It's early morning. You hear the familiar sound, shuk shuk shuk. Your neighbor is grinding maize on a matete. That's how every meal begins. Because to the Maya, maize wasn't just food. It was life. They believed humans were made from maize dough created by the gods themselves, after earlier attempts with mud and wood had failed. So every tortilla, every tamale, every spoon of maize gruel was not just a meal. It was communion. Your day starts with a toll, a warm, thick maize drink, sometimes flavored with honey or cacao. It's comforting, filling, and perfect before a long morning of farming, weaving, or stargazing. Lunch might be tamales, soft corn dough filled with beans, chilies, or squash steamed in banana leaves. The scent of them cooking wafts across courtyards and markets. If you're of higher status, maybe you add turkey or deer meat. Both were considered luxury foods reserved for feasts or special guests. Oh, and beans. So many beans. Black beans mostly cooked slow and rich with garlic and herbs, eaten with tortillas mashed into stews or spread onto stone plates. They provided essential protein in a world without cows or pigs. But perhaps you're craving something sweeter. Let's talk about cacao. Forget the chocolate bar. The Maya didn't eat cacao. They drank it as a frothy, bitter, spicy beverage, served hot or cold depending on the occasion, often mixed with chili or honey, sometimes with maize or flowers. It was the drink of gods and nobles used in rituals, courtship, and even medicine. If you're visiting a noble household, cacao might be offered in tall, beautifully painted ceramic cups decorated with glyphs and images of gods. It's not just refreshment, it's a performance. Some cups even have instructions. This cup is for drinking chocolate. Cacao beans were so valuable, they were used as currency. You could buy a turkey for 100 beans or a tamale for just two. Not bad, right? Let's walk through the marketplace where food is traded and cooked right in front of you. The smells are incredible: grilled fish, roasted armadillo, baked iguana, and yes, occasionally insects like grasshoppers or grubs. Crispy, spicy, and surprisingly nutritious. Vendors also sell fruit, guava, papaya, avocado, and chaya, a spinach-like green. There's squash tomatoes and chili peppers, lots of them ranging from mild to tongue-numbing. Maya cuisine wasn't bland. It was complex and fiery. Now let's talk about feasts. Feasting wasn't just about indulgence. It was religious, political, and social. You feasted to honor gods, to mark the solstice, or to celebrate a royal birth. Entire villages might gather in the plaza. Musicians played flutes and drums, while food was handed out in painted bowls. During feasts, turkeys, peccaries, wild pigs, or dogs were sometimes served. Yes, dogs. The Maya raised a special breed called the Itzcuintli, just for eating. They were small, hairless, and considered sacred as well as edible. A delicacy of the day. There were also stews known as cool, made with corn, vegetables, and bone broth. The food was seasoned with herbs like epazote achiote and coriander, wrapped in leaves or cooked in pits underground like an ancient slow cooker. And you didn't eat alone. Food was meant to be shared, offered to gods, to family, to strangers. The first bite might be sprinkled on the ground as a gift to the earth. Even burial sites show food's importance. Many graves include pots of food and cacao cups to nourish the dead in the next world. Because even in the afterlife, you'd need a good tamale. There were food taboos too. Some animals were sacred, like jaguars or owls, and never eaten. Certain days were considered unlucky to harvest. Cooking techniques were passed down mother to daughter for generations. And interestingly, they didn't have metal cookware or large ovens. Everything was done with fire pits, clay griddles, combales, and steam. And still, they managed to create meals that were beautifully balanced, full of texture, flavor, and meaning. So next time you sit down with a corn tortilla or sip hot chocolate, remember you're tasting something ancient, something sacred. You're eating like a Maya. You're eating like someone who understood that food is not just fuel, but identity, something that ties you to the land, the stars, and the stories of your people. And now, as you lay back beneath the stars, you can almost smell the tamales steaming, the cacao frothing in a clay cup, the chilies roasting over an open fire. Maybe you're not so hungry now. Maybe you're just a little more connected to a world long gone, but not forgotten. Section 8. Maya Art and Symbolism. Hello again, stargazer. By now, you've walked through Maya cities, tasted their tamales, and sat beneath their sacred skies. But tonight, let's look a little closer at the walls, the carvings, the pots, and the faces. Let's talk about art. Maya art wasn't just for beauty. It was language, prayer, memory, and even prophecy. Everything they made, from towering stone monuments to tiny painted bowls, told a story. And you, dear listener, are about to step into the gallery of a civilization where every feather, every dot, every color held meaning. Let's start in the temple. You're standing before a stela, a tall stone slab, carved with a regal figure wearing an enormous headdress of feathers and jade. His face is calm, serious. His arms hold ceremonial tools, and beside him are glyphs, those elegant curling symbols telling us who he was, what day he was born, and what gods watched over him. That's not just a statue, it's a calendar, a biography, a message to the gods. Now step inside the temple. The walls are painted in vibrant reds, deep blues, golden yellows. On one side, a priest is drawing blood from his tongue with a thorn-covered rope. It's a ritual of sacrifice, but also connection. By offering pain and blood, the Maya believed they could open a vision portal to the divine. Yes, their art didn't just show what they saw, it showed what they believed, what they dreamed. Let's visit a noble's house now. Not a king, just someone wealthy. Their ceramic cups and plates are covered in glyphs swirling like vines and images of gods with jaguar eyes and serpent mouths. Some show ball players or musicians. Some even depict dwarfs and hunchbacks, considered magical beings able to cross between worlds. You reach for a small vase, smooth and glossy. It shows a scribe painting a codex. Above him, a speech scroll, yes, speech, had a shape, floats from his mouth like a ribbon. It curls into the air and ends in a glyph, the word for truth. Even music had shape in Maya art. Artists painted sound as swirling lines or placed flutes and drums in the hands of figures mid-step. You can almost hear the rhythm as you look. In Bonampak, a Maya city tucked in the jungle, an entire room is painted with a story. You walk in, and suddenly you're in the middle of a royal ceremony, musicians, dancers, warriors returning from battle. You see captured prisoners, their hands tied, their faces sorrowful. Blood streams from their fingertips. A noble woman watches her gown, detailed with tiny stars. These murals are over 1,000 years old, and they still feel alive. Now look at the patterns. Maya art is full of symbolism. The number 3 representing the sky, the earth, and the underworld. The number 4, the cardinal directions. The number 13, the levels of heaven. Everything had order. Everything had rhythm. Colors were sacred too. Red for east, black for west, white for north, yellow for south. Green, the color of maze of life, was for the center. Even the creatures in their art had meaning. Jaguars symbolized strength and the underworld. Birds, especially the quetzal, represented the heavens. Serpents were portals often shown, with open jaws revealing a god or ancestor emerging from within. You might notice that many figures wear elaborate masks. These weren't disguises. They were transformations. When a priest wore a jaguar mask, he became a jaguar, not in body, but in spirit. Art in Maya culture was not imitation. It was embodiment. Let's take a moment to talk about their codices. Only a few Maya books survived the fires of conquest, tragic losses of centuries of wisdom. But the ones we have, like the Dresden Codex, are extraordinary. Painted on long bark paper sheets, folded like accordions, they include astronomical charts, rituals, and prophecies. Their art is tiny, delicate, dense with knowledge. One page might show Venus in its phases. Another, a rain god holding lightning like a whip. These books weren't meant to be read by everyone. They were sacred, whispered over, handled by priests with reverence. The Maya also loved miniature sculpture. You find jade pendants carved with god faces, shell ornaments shaped like the moon, obsidian blades etched with tiny glyphs. These were not just accessories. They were protections prayers, pieces of the cosmos worn on the body. And now, maybe you're lying in your hammock after a long day staring up at the beams of your house. You see that someone has carved a glyph into the wood. It says something simple. It is good. That's Maya art too. And so, dear listener, as your eyes begin to close, picture a world painted in stories. Picture a bowl that holds not just food, but memory. A mural that sings. A headdress that tells the time. A city where nothing was plain. Everything was symbolic. Everything mattered. Sleep now in that world, where stars and blood and gods dance together on the walls, where you are both the artist and the art. Let's linger a little longer in this visual world, shall we? You see, Maya art wasn't just something to hang on a wall or place in a temple. It was everywhere, on the steps of pyramids, on the lintels above doorways, on the wooden beams of homes. And it wasn't static. Many artworks were meant to be read like comic strips or musical scores. You didn't just look at them, you followed them. Glyph by glyph, figure by figure. Some pottery even included little jokes. Yes, the Maya had a sense of humor. There are drinking cups labeled the chocolate of so-and-so, like ancient personalized mugs. One bowl even includes the phrase, "This is a very good chocolate cup," which is oddly charming, like someone wanted to brag just a little. Now picture the process. A Maya scribe sits with a deer hair brush painting onto smooth clay with a steady hand. They aren't just doodling. Every curl, every dot must follow sacred rules. Glyphs are painted in blocks often read in pairs, left to right, top to bottom. One small mistake and the meaning could shift entirely. Rain might become fire. King could become death. Their hands are steady. Their breathing slow. It's not just art, it's meditation. In fact, the Maya believed their gods were artists too. The gods painted the sky. They sculpted humans from maize dough. The first act of creation, in some myths, was drawing, giving form to dreams. This idea that art has divine power meant that artists were not mere craftsmen. They were shamans of shape and color. In some inscriptions, the word for artist is the same as the word for seer. They didn't just create, they revealed. And then there's the headdresses. Have you seen them? Towering constructions of feathers. Jade bone and shells so tall, some likely needed assistance just to help the wearer balance. These weren't just costumes. They were symbolic maps of the universe. A ruler might wear a jaguar pelt and a quetzal plume, blending the earth and the sky, ruling both in a single glance. Even hairstyles were part of the canvas. High-status Maya often shaped their skulls in infancy, binding them to elongate the forehead, a sign of nobility and beauty. Some even crossed their eyes intentionally to match the sacred look of certain gods. It might seem strange to us, but to the Maya, the body itself was a living sculpture. And of course, the ball courts. Have you walked past one yet? Long, narrow alleys, flanked by sloped stone walls. But look closely, the walls are carved with scenes of the game and its consequences. One famous panel shows a player being decapitated with serpents flowing from his neck, not blood. A metaphor, perhaps, for a transformation, for rebirth. Because art for the Maya wasn't about decoration. It was about meaning. Every brushstroke, every chisel mark, every bead of jade, it all pointed to the same truth, that the world was made of stories, and that you, even in sleep, are part of them. So now, as your thoughts begin to wander, let yourself drift across the painted floors of temples, beneath walls covered in spirals and stars. Let the colors wrap around you like a soft woven cloth. Let the eyes of stone kings and painted gods watch over you, not with judgment, but with gentle curiosity. You've seen the world as the Maya saw it, not flat, not dull, but filled with shimmering layers, with glyphs and gods, feathers and fire jade and dreams. Close your eyes now and sleep beneath a painted sky. Section 9, Maya Time and Astronomy. Welcome back, sleepy traveler. Tonight, we turn our gaze upward to the stars, the planets, the endless dance of time. You've walked the steps of Maya temples, listened to the sounds of ancient festivals, and followed the brushstrokes of their artists. But now, it's time to lift your eyes and your mind to the sky. Because the Maya didn't just look at the stars. They understood them. Yes, long before telescopes, satellites, and smartwatches, the Maya were charting eclipses, plotting the movement of Venus, and building entire cities in alignment with the heavens. Their obsession with time wasn't just practical, it was sacred. You see, too, the Maya time wasn't a straight line. It was a circle. Or rather, many interlocking cycles spinning together like gears in a cosmic clock. Let's begin with the Tzolk'in, the 260-day calendar. This was the sacred calendar used for rituals, agriculture, naming children, and choosing the right day for everything from planting corn to declaring war. Why 260 days? Good question. No one's entirely sure, but some say it mirrors the human gestation period. Others think it matches the time between key solar events or the interval of the sacred Venus cycles. Perhaps, like all Maya mysteries, the answer lies somewhere in between logic and magic. The Tzolk'in is a cycle of 13 numbers and 20-day names. You might be born on Eta Jah and someone else on Tucan. Each combination has meaning, a personality, a destiny. It's a bit like astrology, but more complex, more poetic. Then there's the Hab, the solar calendar, 365 days, just like ours, divided into 18 months of 20 days, plus a 5-day nameless period, called Wayeb. Those 5 days, they were spooky. People stayed inside. The veil between worlds was thin. Accidents happened, spirits wandered. So if you lived in the Maya world, and someone invited you out during Wayeb, you'd probably politely decline. Now let's put these two calendars together. The Tzolk'in and Hab interlocked, like gears forming a calendar, round a 52-year cycle. It would take 18,980 days for a specific Tzolk'in and Hab date to repeat. If you were lucky enough to live through one full calendar round, it was a big deal, kind of like turning 104 in our world. But wait, there's more. The Maya weren't satisfied with 52-year cycles. They wanted to track everything. So they invented the long count, a linear calendar that could record billions of days. This was how they dated their great monuments. You've probably heard of one famous date, 13. 0.0.0.0 December 21st, 2012. No, they didn't say the world would end. That was a misunderstanding. For the Maya, that date marked the end of a great cycle, 125 years long, and the beginning of a new one. It was a reset, a cosmic breath. Now imagine you're a Maya astronomer. You climb to the top of your temple, maybe in Uxmal or Copan, just as the sun rises. You place your obsidian sighting tool and wait. The sun hits the temple's eastern staircase exactly just as it does every equinox. You mark the day. The cycle continues. You spend your nights watching the movement of Venus, which the Maya followed more precisely than almost any other ancient civilization. They knew its phases, its risings and settings, even its occasional disappearance behind the sun. Venus was not just a planet. It was a god, a twin of the sun, a bringer of war, a messenger between worlds. Some temples, like the one at Zibil Chaltun, are built so that the sun rises perfectly through a doorway on the spring equinox. It's not an accident, it's design. Architecture aligned with the cosmos. Even their myths mirrored the sky. In the Popol Vuh, the Maya creation story, two hero twins journey into the underworld, defeat death, and rise again, just like the sun each morning, or Venus returning from the darkness. Their stories weren't just metaphors. They were reflections, narrative versions of the sky. The Maya knew about eclipses too. They recorded them in their codices, predicted their returns, and built rituals around them. An eclipse wasn't just a celestial event. It was a cosmic warning. Something had gone wrong in the order. The sun and moon were being devoured. It was time to make offerings to restore balance. You might think all of this was just religion. But here's the thing. Maya timekeeping was mathematically brilliant. They used a vigesimal, base 20 number system, complete with a concept of 0 centuries before it appeared in Europe. Their numbers were represented with dots, ones, bars, fives, and shells 0. It was visual, elegant, and incredibly efficient. And when you put it all together, the calendars, the observations, the rituals, you get a society that lived inside time in a way we hardly understand. To us, time is a race. To the Maya, it was a rhythm. They didn't fear time. They danced with it. So now, dear dreamer, as your thoughts grow softer and your breath slows, imagine lying beneath a Maya sky. The stars overhead are not random. They are guides, ancient and wise. You're not lost. You're exactly where you should be, in the great turning gears of a universe that remembers every moment, every name, every day. You are part of a cycle, a sacred one. Close your eyes and drift through the stars of the calendar. Section 10. Collapse and Mystery. What happened to the Maya? Welcome back, my dreamy explorer. Tonight, we step into silence. For centuries, the Maya built magnificent cities deep within the jungles, glittering with temples, plazas, and painted walls. They charted the stars, carved sacred glyphs, and passed their stories from one generation to the next. But then, they stopped. Not all at once, not everywhere, but across vast regions, great Maya cities were suddenly abandoned. The jungle crept back in. The carvings cracked in the heat. The temples fell into shadow. And for a long time, no one knew why. Let's rewind a bit, shall we? It's the 8th or 9th century CE, in the classic period of Maya civilization. You live in Tikal or Palenque or Copan, cities of stone and splendor. You've watched kings rise and fall. You've celebrated harvests and eclipses and watched great ball games played by warriors in glittering masks. But beneath all that glory, pressure is building. The first cracks are invisible. The crops begin to struggle. Drought seasons grow longer, the rain shorter. The maize doesn't grow quite as tall, wells dry. At the same time, the population is booming. Cities like Calakmul and Karakol are bursting at the seams, tens of thousands of people all needing food, water, land. There's tension in the air. Rulers respond in the only way they know how, building bigger temples, throwing larger festivals, performing more sacrifices to the gods. You can almost hear the chants echoing in the jungle. If we build it, the gods will answer. But the rain doesn't come, and the drought deepens. Soon, kings begin to fall. Wars break out not over conquest, but over survival. Neighboring cities, once allies, turn on each other. Elite families disappear from the records. Inscriptions grow shorter. Some just stop mid-sentence. By the 10th century, it's eerily quiet in the central lowlands. Cities that once thrived for 500 years are now ghost towns. Only the howler monkeys remain. But here's the twist. The Maya didn't vanish. They moved. To the north, cities like Uxmal and Chichen Itza rise in new splendor. In the highlands of Guatemala, Maya communities adapt, change, and carry on even through Spanish conquest centuries later. Their languages, rituals, and calendars survive to this day. Still, the question lingers, why the sudden collapse in the South? Scholars have suggested many reasons, and it may be that no single cause is enough. Maybe it was environmental collapse, massive deforestation, overfarming, drought cycles, intensified by climate change. Political collapse, endless warfare, unstable leadership, and the breakdown of trade. Spiritual crisis. If the gods weren't answering, maybe the system itself was in doubt. Social revolution, the lower classes long burdened, may have simply walked away. Can you imagine it? You're a farmer outside Copan. You've worked the king's fields, paid your tribute, watched your neighbors vanish. And one day you just stop. You gather your family, you take what you can, and you walk into the hills, away from the temples, into a new life. No rebellion, no fire, just quiet departure. The jungle doesn't mind. It begins reclaiming what was once cleared. Vines curl over stone faces. Trees crack through ball courts. Parrots nest in the empty palaces. And the world forgets. At least for a while. Centuries later, when Spanish conquistadors arrive in the Yucatan, they find not empty cities, but thriving Maya communities. Speaking Maya languages, reading glyphs, praying to their gods. The civilization had changed, but it had not ended. Even today, there are over 6 million Maya living in Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras. They remember. They speak the names of kings long past. They carry the stories in their blood. So perhaps the real mystery is not that the Maya disappeared, but that we ever thought they did. Now, as you lie in your warm bed, imagine the empty halls of a city like Yaxchilan, moonlight on stone vines growing across a forgotten glyph. Imagine a jungle that remembers every whisper. Imagine that you are not alone, that in your dreams, the Maya are still walking, still watching the stars, still counting the days. Close your eyes and let the silence speak. But the mystery doesn't end with the jungle's silence. In fact, it deepens. Because when archaeologists began uncovering these forgotten cities in the 19th and 20th centuries, they found evidence not just of collapse, but of incredible human effort, frantic building booms right before abandonment, mass graves, hinting at civil unrest, and hastily recarved stelae, suggesting desperate attempts to rewrite fate. It's as if the Maya elites knew what was coming and tried to stop it. Maybe they believed they could pray the drought away. Maybe they hoped a new king, a stronger alliance, a bloodier sacrifice would set the world right again. But time, even sacred Maya time, can turn against its makers. Let's pause here and imagine you're standing in the central plaza of Dos Pilas, one of the great southern cities. It's the late 700s CE. Around you, temples tower like stone mountains. Priests chant in smoky incense. The sky is dark with looming clouds that never quite rain. And then one morning, the people are simply gone. What's left behind? Half-carved monuments, forgotten offerings, broken tools, and a heavy stillness. One of the most haunting discoveries in Maya archaeology is that abandonment wasn't dramatic. There were no grand fires, no mass destruction, no final battle. Just gradual, uneven, and inexplicable disappearance. Some temples were still being built as their cities fell. Some kings were still carving their names as their people walked away. It's like a dream ending halfway through a sentence. And now, centuries later, you, the quiet listener, tucked under blankets in your warm bed, are part of that unfinished sentence. You're the breath after the silence. As the world around you drifts into sleep, remember this: civilizations don't end with explosions. They fade. In whispers and roots, in echoes left behind in the stone. And the Maya, they never truly left. Their descendants are all around us, speaking Yucatec que Iche Quequechi. Their calendars still tick on. Their corn still grows. Their gods still stir in caves and mountains. Their art still dances in color across ancient walls. So the next time someone tells you the Maya vanished, you'll know better. You'll remember that people don't vanish. They change, they adapt, they survive. And, just like the stars, they watched, they always return. So close your eyes now and feel the jungle, breathing slow and steady like the rhythm of time itself. You're safe, and the story will wait for you until morning. Section 11. Maya Medicine and Healing. How do they cure pain? Welcome back. Sleepy traveler, tonight we lie quietly beneath the thick green canopy of the ancient Maya world. Not to watch a battle, not to praise a king, but to get better. Because yes, even in a land of jade masks and crumbling temples, people still got sick. They coughed, they limped, they ached, they bled. And the Maya, like every civilization before and after, had to answer that ancient question, how do you heal pain? Let's start with the basics. The Maya weren't guessing in the dark. They had a surprisingly sophisticated medical system built on observation tradition and belief. Their doctors were called Amen healers, who were part herbalist, part priest, and part astronomer. If you had a fever, they didn't just treat your body. They checked the stars, prayed to the gods, and sometimes even blamed a spirit that got a little too curious. Imagine lying on a woven mat in the shade. You've been feeling dizzy for days. The healer arrives not with a stethoscope, but with a bundle of sacred leaves, a clay bowl, and a deep calm in his eyes. He speaks softly, asking when the dizziness began. He looks at the sky. He listens to your breath. And then the treatment begins. Now Maya medicine wasn't separated from religion, like in modern hospitals. It was woven together. Illness wasn't just a physical event, but a spiritual imbalance. Maybe you offended a god. Maybe an ancestor was restless. Maybe your dreams had been pointing to something all along. To fix it, the healer might burn copal incense to carry prayers upward. Use cupping with clay, or gourds to draw out bad winds. Massage you with heated stones, or rub sacred herbs into your skin. Chant for hours, rhythmic, deep, nearly hypnotic, until your breath matches his. But don't be fooled. This wasn't all mysticism. The Maya also understood botany and anatomy far more than we often assume. They used chili peppers as a topical pain reliever, hot and numbing, and tobacco in poultices to clean wounds. Turmeric, cacao, honey, and tree resins were all part of their medical toolkit. One tree, called the kapalchi, was even used to lower fevers, kind of like ancient Tylenol. They had dentistry too. You might be horrified or amazed to know they practiced dental inlays, carving out parts of teeth, and inserting tiny bits of jade turquoise or obsidian. Sometimes decorative, yes, but also they believed it could protect your spirit and impress the gods. Need stitches? They had obsidian blades, sharper than modern surgical steel. And they likely performed wound stitching, possibly using hair or fine plant fiber. In some cases, they even did trepanation carefully, drilling a hole in the skull, perhaps to relieve pressure after injury, or to release a malevolent force. Imagine that. You're in pain, you're scared. But instead of antiseptic white walls and fluorescent lights, you're surrounded by the low hum of insects, the flicker of torchlight, and the steady presence of your healer. Someone who believes not just in treating your symptoms, but restoring the harmony of your soul. The Maya even had treatments for mental illness, though they wouldn't have used that term. If someone was hearing voices or too sad to leave bed or violently out of control, it was seen as a spiritual crisis. Ritual bathing, herbal steam, and community ceremonies were all used, not punishment, but purification. Now don't get us wrong. Not everything worked. Some treatments were dangerous. Some were based on superstition. And yes, some patients didn't make it. But isn't that true of medicine, everywhere even today? What makes Maya healing so beautiful and sleep-worthy is its gentleness, its quiet attention to the person, not just the disease. You weren't just a case. You were a spirit in need of balance. And balance was everything. If your right and left sides were out of sync, or your body was too hot or too cold, or your spirit had wandered from your body, all of it could make you ill. Healing wasn't just about herbs, but about music, light, and presence. So now picture yourself lying in a cool room carved into stone. The healer lights a candle made of beeswax and tree bark. He mixes herbs in a clay pot. The smell is earthy, sharp, soothing. He hums softly, and slowly your breath begins to match his rhythm. You forget about the ache in your leg. The tightness in your chest fades. You're floating. The jungle outside sighs in the wind. And the gods? Well, they're listening too. Let the healer finish his chant now. Let the herbs do their work. Let the dreams come gently tonight, without pain or fever or fear. You're safe, and tomorrow when you wake, your spirit might just feel a little lighter. Section 12. Sacred Water. Why did the Maya worship cenotes? Welcome back, my friend. Tonight, we're going somewhere cool, dark and quiet. Not a temple, not a battlefield, not even a home. We're going down into water. Still water, deep water, holy water. We're going into the cenote. You might not have heard that word before. Cenote, pronounced say-note. But to the Maya, it was everything. It was sacred, it was feared, it was the mouth of the gods. Let's start simple. A cenote is a natural sinkhole. In the Yucatan Peninsula, the limestone ground is porous, and over thousands of years' rain and underground rivers carved open vast chambers. When the ceiling of one of these caves collapses, it reveals an entrance to an underground lake, cool, blue, bottomless. To you, it might seem like just a beautiful swimming hole. But to the Maya, it was a portal. Let's go back 1,000 years. You're standing near Chichen Itza, a mighty Maya city. The stone pyramids rise high, and the crowds bustle in the hot sun. But not far from the plaza, surrounded by dense green trees, there is a perfect circle of water, wide as a soccer field, still, deep, waiting. The Maya called it Dzonot, meaning sacred well, and they believed it led to Xibalba, the underworld. But Xibalba wasn't just a place of death. It was a place of mystery magic transformation. Gods lived there. Spirits passed through it. And so the cenote became a place to speak with them. It wasn't just belief. It was practice. Archaeologists have explored the sacred cenote of Chichen Itza and found astounding things at the bottom: gold, jade, carved wood, rubber balls, obsidian knives, and bones. Yes, human bones. Sometimes people were sacrificed into the cenote, especially during times of drought. You see, in Maya religion, rain wasn't guaranteed. The god, Chelak, the bringer of rain, lived in caves and beneath water, and cenotes were like windows to his world. So when crops failed or rivers dried, people came to the cenote and prayed. They burned incense, they threw gifts, and sometimes they offered lives. Children, women, warriors chosen carefully, dressed in fine clothes and feathers, would be led to the edge of the water, and then offered. It sounds dark, and in some ways it is, but it was also filled with awe. This wasn't cruelty, it was necessity. To the Maya, it was a conversation with the divine, and water, more than gold, more than corn, was life. Now, not all cenotes were used for sacrifice. Some were places for healing and ritual bathing. Others were sources of pure, clean water, vital in a region with no rivers. And still others were hidden, known only to a few priests and villagers, whispered about, guarded. Let's imagine you live in a small village deep in the jungle. Your grandmother tells you that the cenote near your home has a spirit in it, an old woman with eyes of light who appears only at dawn. You never go near it without asking permission. You leave a bit of food at its edge. You say thank you, and when you're sick, your mother dips a bowl in its water and places it beside your bed. To us, that might sound like legend. But to the Maya, water was never just water. It was alive. It listened. Even today, local Maya communities still speak of cenotes with reverence. They bathe in them gently. They warn children not to shout near them. They say the gods still live down there, far beneath the limestone, listening through the ripples. Scientists have mapped hundreds of cenotes, many connected by underground rivers. Some are pitch black. Some are filled with glowing blue light. Some have never been fully explored. No one knows how deep they go. And perhaps it's better that way. Because in a world of stone pyramids and sunlit cornfields, the cenote is something else, a quiet place, a cool breath, a doorway. So now lie back in your mind. Picture the vines hanging down into a stone ring, light filtering through the leaves. The air smells of wet earth and wildflowers. The only sound is dripping water. You walk closer, you look down. The water is so clear, it seems invisible until it vanishes into darkness. You drop in a small offering, a flower maybe. It floats for a moment, then sinks slowly, slowly, into silence. The gods have heard, and you are safe. So let's return for just a moment to that sacred cenote at Chichen Itza. Imagine the scene: priests in feathered robes, the smell of copal incense thick in the air drums, echoing through the jungle. The sun blazes overhead, and the people gather not to swim, but to witness. The ceremony begins with chants, offerings of jade and shells tossed into the still water. Then silence. A hush falls over the crowd as a human offering is led to the edge. There's fear, yes, but also reverence. This is not execution. This is communication. This is the rain god Cha-Shak being called forth from his watery realm. The Maya believed these sacred acts maintained the delicate balance between worlds. To them, what they were doing was not only brave, it was necessary, and remarkably some people survived. Spanish chroniclers, especially Diego de Landa, recorded that on rare occasions individuals thrown into the cenote were pulled back up. These survivors were said to speak of visions, dreams, or messages from the gods. Whether true or not, the idea is haunting a conversation with the divine held in the stillness below the earth. And the cenote wasn't only sacred because of death. It was sacred because it held memory. Imagine the countless objects thrown in clay figurines of gods, ceremonial tools, even precious textiles that somehow survived underwater for centuries. Archaeologists have found items from far beyond the Maya lands suggesting that people made pilgrimages to offer tribute. So in a way, the cenote was a museum, not of kings or battles, but of devotion. Now here's something else to ponder, especially as your eyes begin to grow heavier. In Maya cosmology, the world had three levels: the sky above the earth we walk on, and the watery underworld below. The ceiba tree, often planted near homes and temples, symbolized this idea, the roots going down into the underworld, the branches reaching the heavens. Cenotes, too, were seen as part of this connection. Just as the pyramid linked the human to the divine through height, the cenote linked them through depth. It's as if every Maya city had a mirror, a downward echo, quiet and cold and sacred. And while the pyramids may have crumbled the cenotes, they remain. Some are now tourist attractions. People dive into them, swim through crystal tunnels, take photos. But if you sit very still and listen, really listen, you might still hear something beneath the water. A whisper, a breath, a ripple from a time when gods were close, and every stone, every drop of water had a soul. So let's stay here a little longer. Lie beside the cenote. Let the vines hang overhead like green curtains. Let the sound of water slow your heart. You are in the safest place of all. Not the palace, not the pyramid, but the womb of the world. Here everything begins and ends. And in your dream tonight, maybe you'll walk down an ancient path through trees and mist and come once more to the edge of sacred water. You'll toss in a prayer, and the gods, if they're in a good mood, might just answer. Sleep well, traveler. The water is watching over you now. Section 13. The Maya Ball Game. Why was it so deadly? Hello again, my dreamy listener. Tonight, you and I are not just spectators. We are stepping into an ancient arena. You can hear the thump of bare feet on stone, the rhythm of a distant drum, the low murmur of the crowd waiting, watching. There is tension in the air, sweaty, silent, sacred. Because this isn't just a sport. This is the Maya ball game. Now let's be clear. This is one of the oldest team sports in the world. It was played for over 3,000 years across Mesoamerica, long before the first footballs or cricket bats were ever dreamed of. The Maya called it pak tapak, or sometimes pits. But it wasn't just the Maya. The Aztecs played it too. Even earlier cultures like the Olmecs may have invented it. But tonight, we'll stay with the Maya. You're standing inside a ball court, long and narrow, like a stone corridor. On either side are high walls, and, if you look closely, you'll see stone rings mounted way up on those walls. Through those rings, the players must pass a solid rubber ball about the size of a melon, and almost as heavy as a bowling ball. Here's the twist: you can't use your hands or feet. That's right, players could only hit the ball with their hips, elbows, or knees. Imagine that for a second, trying to launch a heavy, bouncing rubber ball through a narrow stone hoop, mounted high up, using only the side of your body. Now, imagine doing that while wearing heavy protective gear. Leather pads, elaborate belts, ornate headdresses, and the crowd is watching your every move. And they're not just cheering. They're watching to see who lives and who dies. Because sometimes this game ended in sacrifice. Not always, not in every town. But in some sacred matches, the outcome had deep religious meaning. And the players weren't just athletes. They were heroes, priests, and sometimes even nobles. Let's pause for a moment. Can you feel the heat of the day on your face? The stone under your sandals? Can you hear the low rhythmic chant of the watchers? The thud of the rubber ball echoing through history? Now let's dive into the meaning. To the Maya, the ball game wasn't just for fun. It wasn't even just a competition. It was a cosmic reenactment. They believed in a powerful myth, the hero twins, Hunahpu and Xbalanque, who played ball in the underworld, Xibalba. The Lords of Death didn't like the sound of the game echoing down into their realm. So they summoned the twins, challenged them to a match. And well, things got very complicated. But long story short, the game was a divine battle between life and death. Every match was a performance of this myth, a way to keep the universe in balance. So scoring a point, it wasn't just for pride. It was a way to reenact the survival of life. Now here's a little mystery for you to dream about tonight. Some scholars say it was the winners of the game who were sacrificed. Yes, the winners, because to be offered to the gods was the highest honor. Others say it was the losers who were killed as punishment for failure. Who was right? We may never know. Maybe it changed from city to city, era to era. Maybe it depended on the mood of the priest or the wishes of a king. Either way, stepping onto that court meant placing your life and your afterlife in the hands of the gods. Still with me? Let's wander through one of the most famous courts, the Great Ball Court of Chichen Itza. It's massive, 96 meters long, bigger than a modern football field. And the acoustics unreal. A whisper at one end can be heard clearly at the other. Imagine how the chants and gasps echoed during play. There are carvings along the wall. One of them shows a player being decapitated with snakes emerging from his neck. Not blood snakes, because in Maya, belief sacrifice wasn't an ending. It was a transformation, a release of energy, a merging with the gods. But not every match was sacred. Some games were friendly, even casual. Local teams played for entertainment, for honor, maybe even for a little gambling. But in the big cities, the ceremonial games were like the Super Bowl, and a spiritual ceremony rolled into one. And now, gently let's imagine you're one of the players. Your team has been training for weeks. Your arms ache from the weight of the ball. Your hips are bruised. You've memorized every chant, every rule, every ancient move. You step onto the court. The crowd falls silent. The ball is tossed into the air. You leap, twist, strike, and the game begins. Maybe you'll win. Maybe you'll score the point of a lifetime. Or maybe you'll become a legend in another way, your name whispered into eternity, carried through time by the stories of your sacrifice. But for now, it's just you and the ball. And the gods are watching. Section 14. Glyphs and Gods. How did the Maya write without an alphabet? Hello again, my dreamy companion. Tonight, we are not travelers. We are readers, but not of ordinary books. We are slipping into the world of the Maya script, a writing system so strange, so beautiful, that even modern scholars took centuries to understand it. You're holding a page, but it's not made of paper. It's made of bark folded like an accordion, painted in reds and blacks. Or maybe you're gazing up at a stone stele in the jungle, half buried, half whispering. And on it, glyphs. Dozens of them. Each one a story, each one a name, each one alive. Let's start with the basics. Unlike our alphabet, the Maya didn't write with letters. They didn't have a B or a T or a Z. Instead, their writing system was a mix of logogram symbols that stand for entire words and syllabic signs, symbols that stand for syllables. In other words, one glyph might mean king. Another might sound like Ka. Another could represent the idea of sky or snake or arrival. And they didn't write in straight lines like us. Nope. Maya texts often moved in grid patterns from top to bottom, then left to right, or sometimes in zigzags. You had to know where to look, like following a secret path. And the glyphs? Oh, they're beautiful, really. Each one is like a tiny painting. A jaguar head, a hand with a dot, a face with its eyes closed, each symbol pulsing with myth and memory. And you might be wondering, how did anyone learn to read this? Good question. For a long time, nobody could. When Spanish conquistadors arrived in the 1500s, they were confused and frightened by Maya books. They saw strange signs, mysterious rituals, and pagan gods on every page. So what did they do? They burned them. Thousands of Maya texts were destroyed in great fires. Knowledge, entire libraries of it, turned to ash. Only 4 Maya codices survive today. Just 4. It's like if the whole world's history were reduced to 4 lonely books. But the Maya didn't only write on bark. They carved glyphs into stone monuments, staircases, pottery, even bones. These stone texts survived where books didn't, standing tall in cities like Copantical and Palenque. And for centuries, no one could read them. Scholars stared at the glyphs and shook their heads. They guessed, they dreamed. Some thought the glyphs were only pictures, symbolic, not phonetic. Others thought they hid a secret alphabet. But it wasn't until the 20th century that a few brilliant minds like Tatiana Proskouriakov and Yuri Knorosov began to crack the code. Here's a lovely fact to drift off to. It was a Russian linguist working in Cold War Moscow, using a banned copy of a book, who realized the Maya script wasn't random. It was language. It had grammar, syntax, names, dates. It wasn't just myth, it was history. Suddenly, the dead began to speak. Tomb inscriptions told us who was buried inside. Carved panels revealed dynasties, and wars, marriages, and astronomy. Even jokes. Yes, some Maya scribes slipped humor into their texts, little puns, teasing remarks, because writing wasn't just for priests, it was for poets too. Now let's imagine you're a Maya scribe. You sit in a quiet room with paints made from crushed shells and berries. Your fingers are stained with ochre. You hold a delicate brush, and in front of you is a codex, a sacred book. You are about to write the name of a god. But you don't just spell it. You paint it, carefully, reverently. You choose the right glyph for each syllable, each idea. Maybe the god is Itzamana or Echel, or the lord of the underworld. You know the rules, but you also know how to bend them. You hide meaning in your art, because in your world, writing is magic. Not metaphorical magic, real magic. Writing brings things into being. Naming is a form of creation. To write a god's name is to summon him. To write a date is to fix it in time. You close the codex, you whisper a blessing, and you pass the book to a priest who will read it aloud at dawn. But now, my sleepy reader, the codex is yours. It's quiet now. No fires, no noise. Just the soft turning of a page. You trace the glyphs with your finger. You try to guess what they mean. One says sun, another says flower, another says beginning, and together they whisper a story that is older than memory. So sleep now, little scribe. Dream of jaguars and sky serpents, of gods and kings and the brush of bark beneath your hand. When you wake, maybe the glyphs will speak to you. Maybe they already are. But what happened when a king wanted to record his reign? He didn't just hire a historian. He summoned the scribes, the elite few who could speak to stone. Scribes were highly trained, often members of the royal court, sometimes even nobles themselves. Learning the glyphs could take years, even decades. It wasn't just about memorization. It was about understanding layers of meaning. One glyph could mean sun, but in the context of a coronation, it could mean divine right, or even life force. You see, the Maya loved poetry. Even their calendar dates were encoded with beauty. A single date might say, on the day 8 Chuen in the year of the fire rain, when the moon was half dark, the sky god smiled. It wasn't just a timestamp. It was a moment etched into the fabric of existence. And it wasn't just what they wrote, but where. A royal stairway might hold a narrative inscription, each step a sentence. You'd literally walk through a story, ascending the life of a king as you climbed. Temples were covered in sacred texts. Even human bones recovered from tombs have been found with carved glyphs, perhaps recording the journey of the soul into the afterlife. Here's something curious. Maya glyphs had multiple readings. One symbol might be both a word and a sound, and could be combined with other glyphs for clarity or poetic flair. It's a bit like if you could write the word bee using a little picture of the insect, the letter B, or just a buzzing sound, and all of them would be correct. This flexibility made the writing system complex, but also elegant, full of double meanings, riddles, puns, and secret references. Now drift gently into the story of a single name, Kinich Janab, Pakal, perhaps the most famous Maya king who ruled over Palenque in the 7th century CE. His name appears in glyphs over and over carved on his temple, his tomb, his legacy. The glyph for Kianich includes the sun, face the symbol of brightness and divine energy. Janub may refer to a flower or a fragrance, and Pakal means shield. So his full name. It was like saying, radiant sunflower of the shield. Would you want a name like that? Maybe tonight you can invent your own Maya glyph name. Something with a hummingbird, a crescent moon, maybe a sleepy jaguar. Because the Maya believed names had power, and when written down they could last forever. And here's the wonder of it all. For centuries, people walked past these glyphs thinking they were lost forever. But they weren't lost. They were just asleep, waiting for someone to dream their language again. Section 15. Maya medicine. How did they heal without hospitals? Imagine you wake up with a fever under a dense jungle canopy, surrounded by unfamiliar sounds. No doctors, no white coats, no pills. Just nature herbs, chants, and hands that heal. How did the Maya survive, and sometimes even thrive in such a world? Welcome back, gentle dreamer. Tonight we step softly into the world of ancient Maya medicine, where healing was a blend of science, spirit, and secrets of the jungle. Imagine yourself in a small Maya village, the morning mist still hanging low. Someone is sick, maybe a fever, maybe a snake bite or a broken bone. What happens next? You don't rush to a hospital. Hospitals as you know them didn't exist. Instead, you turn to the healer, the shaman, the curandero, the keeper of ancient knowledge. This healer is both a doctor and a priest. She knows plants, chants, and rituals, and she listens to the sick person's body, to the whispers of the forest, and to the gods. Maya medicine was deeply connected to nature. The rainforest was their pharmacy. From leaves and roots, flowers and resins, they crafted hundreds of medicines. For pain, they used willow bark, much like modern aspirin. For infections, they applied copal resin, a sticky sap with antiseptic powers. For wounds, turmeric and aloe helped ease swelling and clean sores. Imagine the healer, grinding leaves in a stone mortar, mixing powders, preparing poultices and salves, all with practiced hands. But it wasn't just herbs. Maya healers believed illness was often caused by spiritual imbalances or the anger of gods. A bad dream, a curse, or a broken taboo could bring sickness. So alongside physical remedies, they performed rituals. They burned incense, chanted prayers, and called upon gods like Itzamna, the god of medicine and healing. You might even see the healer use a stingray spine or obsidian blade to perform a ritual bloodletting thought to release bad spirits and restore balance. This might sound scary, but it was considered vital. Bloodletting was a form of sacrifice even by the patient themselves, showing devotion and a plea for healing. Now let's drift into the world of Maya anatomy and surgery. Archaeologists have found skulls with signs of cranial surgery, a procedure called trepanation. Ancient surgeons drilled holes into skulls to relieve pressure or treat injury. Remarkably, many of these patients lived for years afterward, showing the Maya had impressive surgical skills. And let's not forget their knowledge of anatomy. Though no formal dissections are recorded, murals and texts show detailed understanding of the human body, veins, bones, muscles, enough to perform complex healing rituals. You might be surprised to learn they also used psychotropic plants in medicine and ritual. Plants like peyote and balche induced visions and trances, helping healers communicate with the spirit world. Now here's a quiet moment to imagine yourself lying on a woven mat, the scent of copal incense filling the air. The healer chants softly, pressing warm leaves against your forehead. You close your eyes, feeling the jungle around you, the pulse of the earth, the rhythm of ancient care. It's not the sterile hospital you might picture. It's a world where nature and spirit entwine, where healing is as much about faith and connection as it is about medicine. And yet, the Maya thrived. Their life expectancy was low by today's standards, yes, but their medical knowledge was remarkable for their time. So tonight, as you drift into dreams, think of those jungle healers, their whispered chants, their powdered leaves, their fierce devotion to life in a world without modern science but full of ancient wisdom. And maybe, just maybe, you'll carry a little of their healing magic with you into sleep. But medicine was not only about herbs and rituals. It was also about observation and experience. Maya healers carefully watched symptoms, seasons, and patient reactions. They knew which plants soothed stomach aches, which ones eased headaches, and which could stop bleeding. They understood that balance was key, balancing hot and cold, wet and dry day and night, both in the body and in life itself. For example, a patient with a fever might be treated with cold herbs to restore equilibrium. This idea of balance mirrors many traditional medicines worldwide, a reminder that health is harmony. Now imagine the healer preparing a special potion for a pregnant woman. Pregnancy and childbirth were sacred but dangerous times. The healer's knowledge could mean the difference between life and death. Certain plants helped ease labor pains, others prevented infections, and the healer's chants created a protective, spiritual shield. Another interesting aspect is the use of massage and physical therapy. The Maya used hot stones, steam baths, and massage to relieve pain and promote healing. They even practiced early forms of physical rehabilitation after injuries. Let's pause and picture a Maya sweat lodge, a small dome-shaped hut where steam rises from hot stones sprinkled with water. People gathered here to purify body and spirit. Sweat lodges were places for healing reflection and community bonding, a kind of ancient wellness retreat. The Maya also had a rich tradition of psychological healing. Mental health, anxiety, and nightmares were taken seriously. Healers might use dreams as guides to diagnose spiritual causes of illness. Dreams were seen as messages from gods or ancestors, so interpreting them was vital. Sometimes the healer prescribed dream incubation, sleeping in sacred places to receive healing visions. Now here's a curious fact for you. Despite their medical skills, the Maya were not isolated from disease. When Europeans arrived, they brought smallpox, measles, and influenza diseases that devastated the population. The Maya had no immunity, and many died. It's a tragic reminder that even ancient wisdom had limits, but the legacy of Maya medicine remains. Modern herbalists and scholars study their texts and plants to this day. Some remedies are still in use in parts of Mexico and Central America. So as you lie in your bed, warm and safe, take a moment to thank those ancient healers. Their wisdom, patience, and connection to nature remind us that healing is as much art as it is science. Close your eyes, feel the jungle around you, hear the healer's soft chant. Let it lull you into peaceful sleep. Section 16. The Collapse. What really happened to the Maya cities? You walk through the jungle. Vines twist through broken staircases. Ceilings have fallen. Temples stand, but they whisper instead of shout. What happened here? Why did the Maya cities fall so still? Welcome back, dear friend. Tonight, let's drift quietly into one of history's softest mysteries, the collapse of the great Maya cities. Not with fire and war, not overnight, but with a long, quiet sigh. The Maya didn't vanish, but their towering cities, they did fall silent. Let's go back to around the year 800 CE. The classic Maya world had reached its peak. Cities like Tikal, Copan, and Calakmul had grown into powerful kingdoms, their kings crowned with jade and feathered headdresses. They built high pyramids, mapped the stars, wrote poems in stone. The cities were full of life. But just a century or two later, the plazas emptied, the temples crumbled, the scribes stopped writing, and the jungle began to reclaim what humans had once called home. What happened? Well, it wasn't just one thing. It was many small things, slow creeping things. Let's whisper through them one by one. First, the land. The Maya were master farmers, but their success had a cost. They cut down trees to build cities, to fuel lime kilns for plaster, to clear fields. Without trees, the soil became dry. Erosion crept in, yields shrank. Imagine trying to grow maize, but each year the harvest shrinks. People grow hungry. Tensions rise. Then came the sky. Evidence from lake sediment shows a century-long drought. No rain for crops, no water for people. Cenotes and reservoirs dried. The gods weren't answering prayers. Now add the kings. Maya politics were full of alliances, betrayals, and wars. When one city grew too strong, others formed coalitions to bring it down. Monuments show signs of military defeats, kings captured and humiliated. With war and drought, people lost faith in rulers who once claimed to speak to the gods. Why follow a king who can't bring rain? So some cities were abandoned. Others shrank into villages. The great ceremonies stopped. The sacred calendar wasn't followed. And slowly, stone by stone, silence took hold. Now pause here, because this isn't a story of extinction. It's a story of adaptation. The Maya people did not disappear. Their descendants still live today, speaking Maya languages, practicing ancient customs, honoring their ancestors. They moved to smaller settlements. They changed how they farmed, how they prayed, how they governed. The empire faded, but the people endured. So maybe it wasn't a collapse. Maybe it was a transformation. One whispered into the roots of trees and the cracks in old stone. And when explorers stumbled across these ruins, centuries later, covered in vines, shrouded in silence, they asked, "What happened?" But the jungle knew. The sky knew. And now, you do too. As you fall asleep tonight, imagine walking alone through a quiet Maya city. The pyramids rise like sleeping mountains. The wind carries the sound of birds and the ghost of drums. You touch the stone, and it feels warm. Because though the voices are gone, the stories remain. Section 17. The Spanish arrived. Did the Maya resist the conquistadors? The jungle was quiet, but not empty. When the ships came their sails, white like clouds, and their flags foreign, the Maya were watching. They had seen strangers before, but never like this, and they would not surrender quietly. Welcome back, traveler. Tonight we arrive at a stormy chapter, not of thunder or rain, but of steel and smoke. It is the 1500s now, the age of sails and gunpowder of kings, across the sea of names like Cortez and Pizarro, echoing across the Americas. But this isn't the story of the Aztecs. No, we return to the world of the Maya, still living, still adapting long after the classic cities had fallen. They hadn't vanished. They had moved, shifted, scattered into new towns, deeper forests, smaller kingdoms. And they were watching the Spanish ships arrive. The first contact came not with an army, but with a wreck. In 1511, a Spanish ship crashed on a reef off the Yucatan coast. Only a handful survived. Among them was Gonzalo Guerrero, a soldier who was captured by the Maya and who never left. He married a Maya woman, had children, tattooed his face, and fought alongside his new people against the next wave of intruders. Yes, you heard that right. Some of the first Europeans in Maya lands became Maya themselves, but not all would be so peaceful. In 1527, the Spanish launched their first military campaign into the Yucatan. They expected an easy victory. But the Maya were not a single empire. They were dozens of independent towns, each with their own lords and warriors, and they did not roll over. They fought, not in one glorious stand, but in endless skirmishes, ambushes, and strategic retreats. The Spanish brought horses, guns, and disease. The Maya answered with forests, patience, and pride. Imagine it, Spanish soldiers used to open fields and stone roads, struggling through vines and insects, their heavy armor rusting in the damp. They burned towns, but the people returned after dark. They built churches, but the Maya carved crosses into their own style, blending saints with old gods. It wasn't one war. It was 100 little ones across 200 years. That's right. The conquest of the Maya took over 2 centuries, much longer than the fall of the Inca or the Aztecs. Some Maya towns surrendered, others signed peace, and still others never truly gave in. In the thick jungles of Petén, a Maya city called Tayasal remained independent until 1697, over 150 years after the fall of Tenochtitlan. When the Spanish finally arrived, they brought not only cannons but boats paddling across a lake to reach the last independent Maya kingdom. And even then, the Maya fled into the jungle. Now pause, because what's most haunting is not just resistance, but survival. The Spanish banned the old rituals. They burned Maya books, the codices full of history, astronomy, poetry. Only 4 survive today, but the people kept the stories alive, in whispers, in dances, in weaving patterns and calendar dates. They didn't forget, they just hid it in plain sight. So tonight, imagine you're in a small Maya village, maybe in the 1600s. A Catholic priest gives a sermon, but nearby an elder teaches the old ways under a ceiba tree. The children learn both. Two worlds tangled like vines on stone, the Maya adapted. They resisted, they blended, and they endured. Not as warriors on a battlefield, but as farmers, weavers, poets' parents, as people. And they are still here, still speaking the old languages, still watching the stars, still building, still remembering, still Maya. So as your eyes grow heavy tonight, imagine a single candle burning in a clay dish. The jungle rustles softly outside. A grandmother hums a lullaby older than writing. And the world for a moment feels whole again. Section 18, Hidden Voices. Maya women, midwives, and matriarchs. The pyramids remember kings. The stone carvings show warriors and priests. But listen closely behind them. Beneath them, within every city wall, were the voices of women. Soft, constant, vital. You may not see them in the records, but they were always there. Good evening, my sleepy listener. Tonight we drift behind the scenes into the quiet places of Maya life. Not the ball courts or the battlefields, not the thrones or temples, but the kitchens, gardens, birthing rooms, and stories told at dusk. Tonight we follow the footsteps of Maya women mothers, midwives, healers, scribes, the ones who held the world together while the kings etched their names in stone. Let's start with the home. The Maya house was usually oval-shaped, made of woven walls and thatched roofs. In this humble space, women raised children, cooked maize, and told the next generation where they came from. They were not just caretakers, they were guardians of memory. You lie on a mat near the fire, wrapped in a hand-woven blanket. A woman grinds maize, on a metate, rhythmically, endlessly. She hums a song not loud enough to distract, but strong enough to soothe. Now, let's walk into the birth room. Yes, the Maya had those. In many towns, midwives were deeply respected women. Not just because they caught babies, but because they spoke to the spirits, read signs in dreams, and guided the soul safely into the world. They knew herbs that soothed contractions. They whispered prayers to Ixchel, the goddess of fertility and medicine. Giving birth was a sacred moment. Not private, not hidden, but honored. And what about power? Surely women were only in the background, right? Not quite. Some Maya cities had queens rulers in their own right. Women like Lady Six Sky, who governed the city of Naranjo. She wasn't just a placeholder. She led military campaigns. She commissioned monuments. And yes, she survived palace intrigues with the precision of a chess master. In Maya art, women often appear with sacred objects, bloodletting tools, god effigies, bowls of offerings. They were priestesses, performers, keepers of ritual. And many were scribes. Yes, those elaborate glyphs, some were written by women. We know this from burial sites, women buried with inkpots and writing tools, their bones strong from years of sitting in the scribe's posture. Now, close your eyes. Picture a young girl in a noble Maya family. She's taught to read, to dance, to grind maize, to memorize chants. She learns to speak in ceremony, to paint symbols, to read the stars. And someday she'll pass that on, maybe to a daughter, maybe to a niece, maybe to the village itself. History forgot many of their names, but it could not forget their work. Even the gods remembered them. Ixchel, for example, goddess of weaving childbirth, and the moon. She was both gentle and fierce, protector of women but also capable of flooding the world if crossed. In her temple on the island of Cozumel, women would journey for pilgrimages seeking guidance, fertility, and strength. It was one of the most sacred sites in the Maya world. So tonight, as you lie beneath your blanket, listen for those forgotten footsteps. Not of warriors in armor, but of women in who appeals, carrying baskets, whispering prayers, passing knowledge like a warm bowl of atoll. They may not be carved in stone, but they are carved in time and in dreams. May their soft voices guide you to rest tonight. Section 19, Living Maya. What remains today? The temples stand in silence, covered in moss. The ball courts are cracked. The cities sleep beneath roots and vines. And yet, the Maya are still here, in languages, in festivals, in markets, and schools, and prayers. Not disappeared, not forgotten, simply living. Hello again, dear dreamer. Tonight, our journey begins not in the past, but in the present. You might think this story ends with ruins. You might think the Maya vanished like mist over a lake. But the truth, as always, is softer, slower, and far more alive. The Maya never left. They simply changed clothes, swapped stelae for schoolbooks, traded temple steps for concrete stoops, but their hearts still speak the ancient beat. Today, more than 6 million Maya people live across Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. Yes, millions. They speak over 30 distinct Maya languages, including Quechua, Yucatec, Quechi, Mam, Tzotzil, and many more. They farm the same maize, squash, and beans. They still make atole, still wrap tamales in banana leaves, still greet the sun in reverence. Imagine this. You're walking through a market in the Guatemalan highlands. The air smells of roasted corn and smoke. Vibrant woven fabrics stretch across every stall, reds, indigos, golds. Each pattern tells a story. The mountain it comes from, the family who wove it, the gods it honors. A little girl runs past in a hand-embroidered huipil, the same kind worn for centuries. She giggles. You smile. You're not in the past. You're in a world that carries the past inside it. Now, drift with me to a quiet village. A ceremony is beginning. The elders light copal incense. The air grows thick with sacred scent. A boy recites the Popol Vuh, the ancient Maya book of creation, in Quechua. His voice is unsure, but his eyes are steady. Around him, candles flicker. This is not a museum. This is not reenactment. This is Maya life. In schools, Maya children learn to read both Spanish and their mother tongues. In cities, Maya activists defend land and language. In festivals, the old gods and Catholic saints dance together side by side. They never stopped adapting, never stopped remembering. Even after centuries of colonization, discrimination, and forgetting by outsiders, the Maya still hold on to who they are. And now, finally, the world is listening. Archaeologists collaborate with Maya elders. Schools offer classes in ancestral languages. And in 2019, the Popol Vuh was declared intangible cultural heritage by UNESCO. Still, not everything is simple. Maya communities face poverty, land struggles, climate change, and political neglect. But they endure as they always have, because resilience is in their bones. They were farmers, astronomers, poets, kings, warriors, scribes, midwives. And today, they are lawyers, teachers, tour guides, weavers, musicians, dreamers. Their ancestors built pyramids aligned to Venus. They counted days with stunning precision. They told stories of hero twins and gods of maize. And now, they text those stories. They post them. They write poems in Quechua on Facebook. Yes, even the gods might scroll today. So my sleepy friend, as you settle into your pillow, remember this: the Maya were never gone. They are your neighbors, your classmates, your favorite street food vendor. They walk beside you. They speak the old words. They dream the old dreams. And when they look at the stars, maybe, just maybe, they still whisper to Kukulkan, just in a different voice. So tonight, listen for them in the wind outside your window. A soft syllable, a remembered prayer, a future that never forgot its past. Sleep well, dear one. You're resting in the arms of history. Section 20. Echoes in Stone. What can we learn from the Maya? The stones do not speak, but they remember. They hold the heat of suns long set. They hold the questions we keep asking, not just what happened to the Maya, but what might happen to us. Hello again, night traveler. You followed the footsteps of gods and kings, midwives, and merchant stars and seeds all the way to the end. Or perhaps not the end. Perhaps just a quiet pause. Tonight, we don't search for answers. We let the questions hum like lullabies. You're standing now at the foot of a crumbling pyramid. The vines are thick, but the shape is still clear. It once touched the sky, and you wonder, not just how the Maya fell, but how they rose, how they built a calendar more accurate than the Gregorian, how they mapped Venus, counted every eclipse, how they grew enough maize to feed millions without steel, without beasts of burden, without the wheel. What if we are not more advanced, only differently forgetful? Close your eyes. Hear the sound of a jungle at night, frogs clicking, wind rustling through ceiba leaves. Above you the stars pulse, the same ones the Maya watched for prophecy and planting. What they saw we see. What they feared, drought, imbalance, forgetting, we fear too. Their cities fell not only to war, but to climate shifts, to overuse, to cycles ignored. They did not vanish, but they did stumble. And their stones remain to remind us greatness is not permanent. Harmony is not guaranteed, but listen. They also left behind beauty, poetry, temples, glyphs like songs, a respect for the land, a reverence for the sky, a humility before the cosmos. They lived with questions as sacred things. And now, so do we. Maybe that's what we truly inherit from them, not answers carved in stone, but wonder etched in time. So what can we learn from the Maya? We can learn that no civilization is immortal. But memory can be. We can learn that collapse is not the same as disappearance, that survival may wear new clothes, and that listening to the land, to the stars, to forgotten voices is not just wise, it is necessary. You're tired now, aren't you? The vines sway gently around you. The temples breathe old stories. You are not alone. The past has held your hand tonight, and maybe, just maybe, it will whisper you to sleep. Sweet dreams, little traveler. May the gods of Maze guard your rest. May Ixchel wrap you in soft moonlight. May your dreams be deep and full of stars. The stones do not speak, but they remember. They hold the heat of suns long set. They hold the questions we keep asking. Not just what happened to the Maya, but what might happen to us. Hello again, night traveler. You've wandered through time with me, tracing shadows and sunlight across the centuries. From the towering pyramids of Tikal to the humble homes of village women, you've heard the stories whispered by stones and stars. Now you stand once more at the foot of a great Maya temple, its surface cracked and softened by centuries of rain and moss. It still holds a secret, a story waiting to be remembered, not just of what was lost, but what was never truly gone. The Maya were builders, builders of cities that rose like mountains, builders of calendars that danced with the cosmos, builders of stories that wove gods and humans into one. But they were also dreamers, dreamers who looked at the night sky and asked questions bigger than themselves. Questions we still ask tonight. How do we live in harmony with the world? How do we survive drought, famine, and change? How do we pass knowledge forward so it does not disappear? The Maya remind us that answers are not always simple. Their collapse was not sudden, nor was it total. It was a slow fading of balance, a warning written in cracked pottery and shifting soils. As you imagine the dense jungles creeping over stone cities, consider this. Our world today is much like that ancient jungle. We face climate change, political unrest, and the fragile threads that hold societies together. But unlike the Maya of the past, we have their legacy. We have their stories, not just carved in stone, but in living voices, in revived languages, in festivals and prayers. There's a quiet power in remembering, a power in honoring those who came before. In the rustle of leaves, you might hear a Maya song. In the glow of your screen, you might glimpse a glyph. In the warmth of a meal, you might taste their maize, grown by hands that never stopped caring for the earth. We can learn from the Maya's respect for nature's rhythms, from their precision in astronomy, reminding us to look beyond ourselves, from their resilience, surviving centuries of change and still thriving. So as you rest your head tonight, think of the Maya as more than ghosts and ruins. Think of them as teachers, as guides, as gentle reminders that history is not just a story of endings, but also of continuity. And maybe, just maybe, we too can build something that lasts. Not monuments of stone alone, but monuments of care, knowledge, and respect. You are part of this story now, a thread in the endless tapestry. So close your eyes, breathe deeply. Feel the weight of history cradle you softly. The stars overhead twinkle with ancient light. Let their glow lull you. And as you drift, remember the Maya did not disappear. They live on in every quiet moment, in every question asked, in the echoes of stone. Good night, dear friend. May your dreams be full of stars and soft shadows.